Leketio. And so every day as I served, I remembered that Leketio is somebody who is supposed to make a difference, it's prayerful, and the words of Martha Karua, who met me at the entrance of Parliament, and she just told me, well, you've come to Parliament, you know what you have come to do. 5 years, but don't count 5 years, it will look long. I remember her words up to today that she told me, serve every day as though it is the last day you're being their MP. And so every day I serve and say, what happens? And so to you, HR, when you leave that seat, please, and I tell my staff wherever I go, I say, when you reach the door, look back and say, I've left that seat. One day somebody else will sit there. What will they remember of the person who sat there? Because it's by God's grace that you'll go and sit on that place tomorrow. That might have been the last day you're sitting on that seat. What difference did you make when you sat on that seat? And so my performance was, well, such that after 5 years, women who stood up were saying, we want to go and work like Leketio. And I'm sure up to today, people still say, I want to work, to go to Parliament and make the difference like Chebik Limo made. What about us? When you leave that seat, when after 5 years or 3 years we have change of, you call them council members, what will be remembered on the seat that you used to like sitting when we had a board meeting? What will be remembered? If you are civil servants, it means you get transferred all the time from ministry to ministry. What impact do you want? And it goes to now what we talk about mainstreaming. When we talk of mainstreaming, to make it in a language that people can understand, stream is a river, and bringing everything in the middle so that it is flowing in the stream. What about you, my dear sisters over here? You are in the mainstream, flowing downstream, like a leaf being carried by water. Will you be remembered? No. What do you want to be remembered for? I remember before coming to Parliament, I used to say, at my gravesite, there must be something added to it. Not just another just msalaba imeka hapo. No, there must be something added to that. So, as much as we talk about mainstreaming, what footprints will you have left? You can say, I am not going to flow like the leaves being carried down the stream of HRM. I want it to be known that once somebody walked here. I used to tell myself, and I kept on reminding myself, that the day my community will write their history, they must say, once upon a time a girl walked in this land. And I know my Margaret community up to today still know that I walked their land. I campaigned on foot, walking everywhere, every village. That is what happens. Now, come to us here. We know that as HRM, as career women, placement and progress, there is always biasness. And that biasness, I think, let us take it positively. Here, there are fewer men than women. And when it comes to HRM practice, we are told all the time that, there are more women than men. Ladies, let us excel in it so much that it becomes an enviable position. And these men, once they know it is enviable, I'm telling you, they'll be coming for it. Because when they see we are becoming famous, popular because of the work that we are doing, they will also say, why can't we do that thing? And in the process, we shall have gender equality. Hello, are we still together? Yes. Okay. We know that the workplace standards have not been really equitable, but as mothers, as women, we can make it equitable, and we are the ones to make it equitable. You are the ones to ensure that our country gets the not more than 2/3 gender in the workplace. You are the people to ensure that there is the face of Kenya everywhere. You know, you are so powerful that you don't see your power, ladies. You know, you can say, no, this one can do, that one can do that. Yes, you are the people who can say, yes, we need the face of Kenya. As much as we want everyone here to have a PhD, but the face of Kenya is not here. What can we do? And I really look forward that one of these fine days, and I wish I could see that document of HR, the PWDs in our country have not been protected well enough. You will find that it is cast in stone that you must have a Form 4 certificate. Fisher. Now, so what happens to those who read backwards like this? Is it there? And they have applied for a job. What are you going to do? I don't know if you have captured that one. We have people who cannot read. They read backwards. We have people who cannot put words together, but they can spell for you. But tell them to read it out, they can't. And they want work. What happens to the HRM? I know I'm challenging my own State Department, but they tell you have to get a Form 4 certificate. You are the ones who see people's papers. And so you can actually advise, collect data, and advise government. I think we have come across this number of people that are not covered in our human resource management. What can we do? Have you seen a deaf person? They look so normal. It's only the blind whom you know that they're blind. And even the mute, those who cannot speak, sometimes you can think they are being rude. So you may easily also forget about them, the mute and the deaf. But we are so accustomed that every PWD is somebody who is walking on crutches or in a wheelchair. But you know, it's you people who can actually change the bias, who can question the status quo and cause Parliament to identify those people. They have been left behind. So workplace standards have not been equitable, and it is only you people who can make it equitable. Now, career and motherhood. I thought this is where I was going to talk about stories now. Okay? Career and motherhood. Those who may have watched me on TV sometimes when I'm being interviewed, they would ask me, how do you manage? I got into politics.
Gender CAS or Chief Administrative Secretary in the Ministry of Gender, that is Lina Jebi Kelimo, there at the 3rd Annual International Human Resource Management Convention being held in Mombasa. And today the theme being breaking the bias, because talking about the inequality when it comes to the gender agenda. We will be having a much-packed report there, as we have our very own Junei Karisa on standby, keeping a keen eye on the same. A lot is happening when you talk about matters, the gender agenda or women empowerment. There's also the launch of Kenya Women's Political Leadership and Strategy, and we also have Women in Media celebrating 40 years, and they're in their second day of that convention. We will be crossing over to those news articles a little bit later. I told you it's a special kind edition of a news check, because today we are looking at the news that are shaping the country in the view of editors, or from the editorial perspective or the newsroom perspective. And joining me now on set is our very own KBC editor, O'Brien Kimani. Karibu sana Obrize.
Well, thank you very much indeed, and it's always a pleasure to have you. For me to have me, how do I put it? It's a pleasure for you to have me now.
Yes,
I'm used to telling people it's a pleasure to have you.
Yes.
Now I'm on the other side.
Pleasure to have you.
Very good.
Now, a lot is shaping the country. Of course, politics is one of them. But before we even touch on politics, one thing that is touching all Kenyans, whether there are any bias in politics or not, is the high cost of living. And the situation has been exacerbated by the current situation in Ukraine and Russia. But before then, this is something that is always replicating when we have a general poll. We see the cost of living, the fuel prices.
I mean, you see, me and you, we are living in a very interesting time because we are seeing the unfolding of a new global geopolitical agenda, unfolding before our eyes. Right now, we're having a situation whereby we have one side of the spectrum being driven by the US, by the EU, and then we have another grouping that is emerging, and it's becoming a very strong player in the global geopolitics. And we have China on one end, we have Russia on another end, then we have India, and some players within the Middle East who are key suppliers of the global suppliers of oil to the global economy. Yesterday there was a very interesting comment that was made by U.S. President Joe Biden when he said that the world is witnessing a new global agenda, and he said that the U.S. wants to be part or wants to be the driver of this new agenda. I mean, what that is telling you is that there is a reset on how we are used to on the things that we have known, the realignment, globally. I mean, we're going to see a reset of agendas, a reset of politics, as we move forward. And this is going to have a significant bearing on not only the world, but us as members of the global society. And look, for you to understand how the whole world is now a conglomerate of interconnected web, just look at what is happening in Russia and Ukraine. You're talking about a country that is more than 6,000 miles away from where we are. And the war that is happening, or the conflict that is happening in those two countries, is having a major bearing on the cost of wheat in Kenya. Very soon, you're going to buy, I know you love chapatis because I work with you and I've seen you interact with chapatis on many occasions. It is going to impact on the cost of chapati that you consume. It is going to impact the cost of unga, and it's also going to impact the cost of transport, because the two countries combined, they supply the world with about 30% of the global wheat demand. That is a significant portion. Yes. As a country, we import about 80% of our wheat needs from Ukraine and Russia. Now, the two countries have cut supplies to the world. So what is going to happen is the other parts of the world, because as you know for sure, wheat is the second most important crop in the world after corn. And so what is going to happen is that the rich countries are going to hold huge stocks of wheat. And the other countries,
is because the prices keep rising, and perhaps they want to make a killing on the same.
You see, basic economics will tell you that if you have fewer commodities in the market, then you expect to see a significant price surge. So what is going to happen is that, yes, there will be very small pockets of wheat in the global market, but it will be very expensive, to a point that developing countries or poor countries will not be in a position to buy. So that will have an impact, and already we are seeing this. If you go to the supermarket today, a 2 kg packet of wheat that was going for how much? 129
yes.
Shillings, 3 months ago, now is going for 180 shillings. So what is going to happen is a lot of people will stop consuming wheat-related products. Okay, those who can afford will still continue to afford to buy things. But what will happen is that in Kenya, by the way, wheat is also the third most consumed product after maize, potatoes, and then you go to wheat. So what will happen to those people who consume wheat on a significant portion on a daily basis? So those are the issues that we need to start asking ourselves. About 2 weeks ago, we saw, the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority increasing the cost of diesel and the cost of petrol by 5 shillings. And we started feeling the impact of the same, the same day. I remember the following day, the Matatu Owners Association said they were going to hike, the cost of transport fares.
Which is another burden for Kenyans as well.
It's going to be another burden. So if Kenyans think that they have seen the worst, if this war in Ukraine delays for more months, then it's going to be a very, very tough situation even for us going forward.
O'Brien, let's look at the oil that we have here in Kenya. Is there a way that we can subsidize? We sell all our oil and then buy from the international market. Would there be a way that perhaps we can have some oil here in Kenya to try and subsidize the prices? Because not only is the oil and the oil product expensive, it's also bringing the cost of living of everything.
I mean, you see, let's first of all put things into perspective. We don't have oil because, the oil in Turkana, we are yet to embark on a commercial production of oil in this country. So we did a little bit of trial. We did a bit of pilot project. I think it was in 2019. And since then, there was a retreat on the side of investor to go and now map their resources and see what kind of investment is needed for them to invest in the Kenyan upstream oil industry. So as we speak for now, we do not have oil that we can call our own. The oil that we have is underground. It is in solid form. So we cannot clearly say that we have oil. We import 100% of our oil.
Yes.
And most of it comes from UAE, Saudi Arabia. But what is happening is this. About 1 week ago, the US has been trying to pressure Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates to sell more of their oil to Europe, which has been impacted by supplies from Russia. And for your information, Russia is a major player in the global oil industry. I think it accounts for about 7% of the global oil output. So what is going to happen is the two countries where we buy our oil from, that is Saudi Arabia and UAE, they're going to get better buyers from Europe and from the US. And what will happen is they're going to redirect all their energies to Europe, okay? And the rest of the world will be left to scramble for the small oil that will be left in the two countries.
And we might see the situation of the COVID vaccines, where the big nations have all the oil, and the little that trickles down to Africa makes life even more difficult.
I mean, that is a sunk kind of a scenario. We are actually seeing that, happening before our eyes, because when the US is pressuring oil-producing countries, to sell or to produce more oil, it is not doing that so that Africa can get more oil.
Yes.
No. It is doing that so that the US, where gasoline prices, by the way, has become a major concern for the first time in more than 20 years, gasoline prices in the US, have reached the $4 mark. A gallon, which would be about 3.5 liters. So the US wants the two countries to redirect their oil exports to the countries that have been impacted negatively by the Ukraine-Russian conflict, and that is the US and the EU. So we will end up with a situation whereby oil, number one, is going to become very expensive going forward, and number two, there will be a scarcity, unless you have the grouping of oil producers in the name of OPEC. Unless they agree that they are going to ramp up production, then we are in for a very rough time going forward. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, if in the next 2-3 months we see oil hitting 150 shillings a litre here in Kenya, I would be surprised.
And looking at the Kenyan economy before even COVID, our economy was battered. Then came COVID. Now comes the Russia and Ukraine war. But we are seeing some sectors registering very impressive results, like the banking sector in such an economy.
I mean, this is something that we need to rethink ourselves, as a country. Every time we have elections, you have a significant tank in terms of economic growth. And this can be well explained by the fact that as a country, we are known to misbehave around the election time. So a lot of investors, they hold back, their investment deals. A lot of tourists, they fear coming to Kenya. And when we don't have investors, coming to your country, when you don't have tourists coming to your country, when you have major supplies or production of your key export products like, horticulture, like tea and coffee, being disrupted, then you're treading on a very dangerous ground. I hope and I wish that we can get to a point whereby, as a country, we manage to divorce. I know it's very hard, but it has been done elsewhere. I mean, I have been in Switzerland during electioneering time, and let me tell you, you wouldn't even tell that there is election, because people do not shout the way we do it here. I mean, you just go around, you know, your politics peaceful and in a quiet manner, and then you cast your vote and you go to work. Okay, I hope and I wish that we'll get to a point whereby, even us as a country, we can get to a point whereby election is not a question of life and death. We have an economy to build. We have infrastructure to build. We have societies to build. I'm looking forward for that time when our politicians will say, hey, look here, how can we behave, or how can we drive our politics, you know, in a sober and in a more responsible manner, in a bit not to affect the economy. Because what usually happens is, like when you look at the year 2018, 2017, when we had elections, there will be a lot of noise during the electioneering period, and so investors will pause and observe. And then as tourists will stop coming, and that, because probably maybe our election are likely to enter into another protracted legal battles, that will have a tailspin of another 1 year.
So and then we are back to politics again.
And then after 3 years, now we go back to electioneering again.
Yes, actually they said the problem with Kenya, we are always in election mood. Okay, before we go on, because of course we have to also look at the border reforms, and now they have been halted, and what the politics inside that. But before then, let's first of all cross over to the Safari Park Hotel, where there is the third there is the launch of the Kenya Women Political Leadership Strategy. The keynote address will be by Martha Karua, but first of all, let's listen in to other speeches.
Multipartism. So we were still in a situation where organizing was very limited. Associations of all kinds, whether they be women or even the labor unions, were completely controlled by government. So it was not as well received in the government circles. And to cut a long story short, despite, you know, a lack of adequate support, I didn't stop there. I continued, because I had made a commitment from 1985 that this was the way to go. As soon as multipartism came, I was in the first row, and I said, since I'm not familiar with how these associations of women like Maendeleo and others work, we need to create another space. It's not in any way to suggest the others are not doing a good job, but to help us focus on this question of developing a strategy that can work on getting women into leadership and staying there and building their capacity. And that's what I did. I did my bit. It's like what the late Professor Angari Madai said, you know, giving the example of a hummingbird, that little bird, that you do your bit, and the rest, other people can also, you know, chip in. And that's what I did. I did my bit. The first thing I did was to design training manuals for women on all the issues of concern, including some of the ones we are talking about here today, and to see how practically they can be made to work. I started with the area that, you know, obviously money was an issue, among other things, but a strategy, including a fundraising strategy. I factored in civic education, etc., etc. All those issues, you know them. Public speaking, like being able to hold on to a platform, like Mother Udu and Shebesh over there. They are, you know, they just walk here and, you know, you have seen how Pasaris has done here. Within 5-10 minutes, she has told you a lot of things and left, but you wouldn't forget. And so women needed also to get all these skills. So I put them, because I had the skills to explain how this works. And then we had to get trainers. And I have to warn you, there were no donors like in this list to just hand over money. Well, most of the meetings we're having, in fact, who are doing them within a university, including my small office. Until at one point, the Vice Chancellor asked me, are you still working for the University of Nairobi, or you have moved to the women's movement? But I have to thank the university. They never threw me out. It kept me, despite all these many agendas I was running. So that is now the second leap into the unknown. The first elections we were so ambitious. We thought we would get 100 women in parliament. And we even gave 100 names and passed them on to the key people to lobby for them. We gave at least 100 women. Honorable Mother Karua was one of them. So was Charity Gilu and all the women, Beth Mugo, they were on that list. And we were very daring, and we went and presented it. Said, at the very minimum, this is our list. But we did not just sit there. We also coupled that with, a strategy of civic awareness, because everyone was civically unaware, even about their rights, let alone, issues of raising money. And those from Nyanza, just to give you an example, would probably know a small place in rural Nyanza called Pala. Pala. At least that's the name I remember. I remember us taking piki, boda, because there was no other way to get there. And women were so kind, we slept in their homes. As we waited for the morning so that we can spend the rest of the day doing training. That was our typical budget, and we spread out, and we were very few. We were harassed by the police. They would come and say these things are illegal, but we would still go on. There was determination. And at the end, we didn't succeed in getting all the women in for that particular election of 1992, but we managed 6, one of whom is seated right here, Honorable Mother Karua. Why can't you clap for her? Mother has been one of the people who gave us the encouragement to continue. She has fought very many battles along with Charity Gilu. Against all odds, they never give up. And that's what I want to encourage even now, the aspiring women candidates. If you go in and you are bashed once, don't run away. That's a mistake you make. Use that as a learning experience. And say, next time I'll do better, I've learned 1 or 2 things. Don't rely entirely on money. Look for other ways. And Mother Karua is here, she'll tell you. Because I know money has, she was never with a lot of money. Because to get a lot of money, you know how you do it. And you have to have certain types of principles to do that. But Martha was leaning in another direction, which I highly respect. And Rachel, it's not because I don't think it's just because I was with her longer and I know her story better. But I'm sure, you are doing the same thing. And so, ladies and gentlemen, this morning, we, apart from, the issue of training and that initial, push, commitment, dedication, and not giving up was very, very, very important. But I was also a little bit like Mother Karua. Sometimes I could be quite harsh in the words I would use. Because one of the things I told women from the beginning, and I would do so now again, is that you have walked into an environment where you need to develop very strong shock absorbers. Because the terrain you are moving into, no matter what you do, you'll not just find some bumps. There will be very deep potholes, you might even sink. And so, strong shock absorbers, not over Rioka, yourself.
Women there are being urged to seize the political moments and go for those political seats in the upcoming 2022 general polls. One of the keynote addresses there, live from the Safari Park Hotel during the launch of the Kenya Women Political Leadership Strategy. We will be getting more from our reporter Ruth Wamboi in our 1 p.m. and subsequent bulletin. Just in case you just joined us, this is KBC News Check, and today we are looking at the issues shaping the country from the editorial perspective, or the newsroom perspective, and we have KBC editor O'Brien Kimani there. And before we crossed over to Safari Park, we were looking at the high cost of living and how it's going to affect us, especially now we have the Russian war, we also had COVID, we also have our elections, but also we were also to look at the reforms in the border sector, something also being also affected by the recession that is there.
Yep.
And did we put the cart in front of the horse? I remember the CS Matiang'i talking about the industry did grow much faster than the reforms themselves. And they started an ambitious program to streamline and then kind of stopped.
Yeah, and even before we jump into the issues of border, I mean, it's a hot potato issue. But let's first of all put a cap on the issues of election. And as we were discussing here, I mean, as a country, we are always in electioneering mode. And I was telling you that, after having the election in 2017, then there was that dispute that went on up to 2018, before the handshake. So when you have the administration now trying to put its house in order, trying to reassure investors that now you can come back, we're done with the politics. Now you are trying to reassure tourists, now you can come back, our beaches are clean and they are safe. It will take you another 2 years before you can do that. That is the third year. Now the fourth year, now we get back into politics. It's
the same place.
Yes, it is something that we need to address in this country because it scares our investors, it scares tourists. Okay, and there is always that disruption in terms of a supply chain. So I'm looking forward for a time when, we shall conduct ourselves with some high level of decorum, whereby people can continue their lives and we politic when it is necessary. Coming back to the issue of border, you see, when the President Mwai Kibaki, the former, when he introduced this whole concept of motorcycles, I mean, he meant very well. For the sector. And let's say this, we must accept that motorcycles have revolutionized the transport industry in this country. Right now in Kenya, you can, with so much ease, move from one point to point B. Before it wasn't not the case because of connectivity. We didn't have many roads in this country. But border came in to fill a gap that was existing. And when I was going through the figures, they were talking about 2 million people employed by the border industry in this country. That's quite a significant number. Indeed. In a country whereby the population is about 55 million people. I was also seeing, the numbers that was coming. I think these numbers, they are yet to be proved by the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, which is the official statistic agency in this country. But I have heard the numbers about borders, contributing about 2 billion shillings to Kenya's economy on a daily basis. So did they say 2 or 1?
1 point something billion.
1 billion. Let's even take 1 billion. So per year, that's about 365 or 366, depending on the year. So that's quite a significant industry, right? Yes. But this was a good idea gone bad. And the reason why it became a bad situation is because we never thought about the regulations. And you have a situation whereby in our country, we always develop regulations later on. We do not think through something so deeply and do what we call problem forecasting, whereby you look at a problem now and you look at it 10 years down the line and you try to do a little bit of a solution. So here we are finding ourselves in the middle of a mess. An economy or a sector that supports almost 2 million people, generating about 1 point something billion shillings every year. That is not an industry that you can wake up one day and say, you're off.
Yeah.
So what we need to do is to retrace our footsteps. The idea of border was a great one. We need now to start thinking about regulations. How do we regulate the border industry in this country? And we don't need to go far. We just need to cross over to our neighbors in Rwanda. Rwanda at some point, they faced the same challenge that we are facing today, whereby the borders, were unruly. But President Kagame's administration said, hey, look here, you are a critical sector in our economy. You are a big employer. So what we need to do is to find a balance. We need you, but we must bring in tough regulations. So today, if you go to Rwanda, you find borders adhering to traffic regulations.
Yes, to the letter.
Yes, definitely, because they know the punishment is very harsh. And you see they are grouped into what here we will call them circles, but they are grouped into regions whereby a border, let's say from Westlands, the rider will wear different colors, different name, and different number, assigned to a specific border, and that is registered. So if you see border rider in, let's say, from Westlands, misbehaving in, let's say, Lavington, so you know for sure that you can report that there was a border, green in color, and this registration number, and they were doing ABCD. And you know that the penalties are very tough. The security agencies in Rwanda, of course, are also very serious, when it comes to dealing with errant. They haven't. We are yet to get into the political mode officially.
Yes.
But look, we've been politicking since when? I think 2017.
Remember Tangatanga and Kieleweke?
So the last 5 years we've been politicking, but officially, Thelo says that the official politicking period is supposed to be three months before the election. I mean, I know you're better off. You know these things better than I do. But look, this is what we have been doing. But this is what I'm saying. We are going to see proper realignment of political sides and political movements 2 months to the election. Right now, yes, it is very hard to say who is ahead of who, or which grouping is likely to carry the day. But from where we sit and from where we stand, that can be well defined 1 month to the elections. Otherwise, it is too close to call. It is hotly contested. There are shifting grounds every day. And so it becomes very, very hard to determine which side is going to carry the day. And the fact of the matter is, by the way, even on the 9th of, even when IBC will announce or shall announce, the results, either on 10th, 11th or 12th of August, the fact of the matter is no single party will win the election by more than 55%.
All right. And talking about...
That one you can take to the bank, by the way.
No one will match up that. 55%.
55%.
All right.
Not a single party will win the elections by 55%.
So we run a risk of going back to the ballot again?
Well, I don't see a tie.
A runoff?
Well, for me, I don't see a tie, and this is my personal opinion.
All right.
From my political observations. But I know for sure that the party that is going to win by a very narrow margin.
And we are headed to the party nominations in the next couple of days. Do you believe it's a good litmus test for the 2022 succession politics? We've seen some politicians shifting goalposts from UDA to Azimio, from Kenya Kwanza to and vice versa. Right.
Look, traditionally, and for you to forecast the future, you must consult the history first. When you look at political parties in Kenya and the way they conduct themselves, political parties in Kenya are individually owned. They are owned by individuals. Let's be honest with each other. And so it is the owners of the party dictate how and how the primaries are going to be conducted and who is going to get what. Everything else is just a smoke screen. I can bet this, my grandfather's court, that even as we see it now, the owners of these political parties, they know for sure that this part will go to this person. This part will go to this person. Everything else that we are going to see will just be a smoke screen to tell us, like, hey, look, we are here, we are behaving, and we are all happy.
Okay, my last question on consensus. We've seen Deputy President doing that as early as yesterday, where we agree, the two of us, Brian, this time around, we ran for the governor. So I'm supposed to perhaps wait for the next 5 years, as opposed to democracy and the role of media in ensuring that we have a credible election. That is our duty as well.
As I am saying, I mean, we are going to see a lot of horse trading, you know, in our political parties, whereby, and let's be honest, I mean, some of these positions are given to the highest bidder. We must be honest, and sometimes it's painful, but that's the reality of life. And that's why you are going to see a lot of defections and realignments going forward, more so as we head to the primaries, where parties are supposed to pick their candidates. Because this party will, this person will feel aggrieved in this party, and so they will jump ship and try to secure, you know, position in another party. Let me ask you this. I mean, look, for a country with how many, about 55 million people, how did we end up with more than 1,000 political parties? Look, the United States, with a population of almost 360 million people, it has three major political groupings. You have the Republicans, you have the Democrats, and then you have, is it called the Green Party also? But look, for us in Kenya, it's a big business. You know, politics is a big business for us. We need to get to a point whereby we sanitize our politics. And one way of doing that is to ensure that we have strong political parties in this country. You know, I was looking at the...
Not just vehicles as we have in the country.
Exactly. You have a situation whereby, you know, political parties are just a vehicle to take you to parliament, to take you to governorship position, or to take you to state house. But we need to get to a point whereby we have political parties that are well-grounded, that are well-rooted, that are not just political parties to move candidates from point A to point B, but political parties that will move this country from point A to point B. A very good example is South Africa, for example. South Africa is like, the economy of South Africa is 5 times bigger, you know, than Kenya. Their population is about 62 million people. They have about 4 main political parties. You have the ANC, you have the Inkatha, you have the EFF, you know, led by Julius Malema, which is less than 10 years old, by the way. And then you have the Democratic Alliance, the DA. These are parties that are well grounded, apart from the EFF, which started about 7 years ago. The others are strong parties, old parties, well-grounded, with massive grassroots support. We need to get to that point.
And we have to get democracy in that as well. Indeed, thank you so much, Brian Kimani. I have been speaking to one of our editors here at Kenya Broadcasting Corporation. They are trying to put into perspective some of the issues that are shaping the politics of Kenya, not forgetting the cost of living. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Ben Troy Njue. And something else I forgot. Today we're supposed to have the National Assembly holding its sessions, but they didn't have quorum, and that is why they did not hold those sessions today. Of course, we have more news coming up at 1, 7 and 9 p.m. But before that, we have Kurunzi Mashinani and we have Tamrini. Thanks for watching.
You call me by my name, as lonely as you are.
I'm not good enough to be a mother. I'm turning into my mom. I was thinking, I'm losing my mind. I'm going to end up losing my daughter. My mind was spiraling just that fast. I was like, I'm losing it. Like, I can't get it together.
R&B's Prince of the Love Song.
We often joke because Kenny has been singing love songs for the past 25 years. I host a show called Divorce Court.
I know.
So he brings people together and I tear them right apart.
Police arrest Anthony Ray Hinton, the man they believe committed 3 armed robberies that left 2 restaurant managers dead and a 3rd wounded. After serving 30 years in prison for a crime he didn't commit.
I hated those men that did this to me.
As holy as you are, I am adopted as your own. As mighty as you are, you call me by my name.
With over 2.4 million operators and a network that covers the entire nation, the Boda Boda subsector has revolutionized transport experience in Kenya. The good, the bad, and the ugly. The Boda Boda story. This Thursday on KBC Channel 1 News. Don't miss the Boda Boda story, a real story of our times.
Log on to the KBC website at www.kbc.co.ke to get the latest breaking news, entertainment, sports, politics, lifestyle or business trends from Kenya and around the world. Never miss new episodes from your favorite TV shows, reruns and movies. Just stream online or watch live on your YouTube channel at KBC Channel 1 TV shows. For the day's biggest stories, trustworthy news and family entertainment, log on to KBC Channel 1. Watch what you want anytime, anywhere.
Chini ya uongozi wa Rais Uhuru Kenyatta, uwekezaji mwafaka umefanywa katika ukarabati na ujenzi wa viwanja vya ndege nchini tangu mwaka wa 2013. Wiki hii kwenye Project 254,
hatutaweza kuinua hali ya maisha ya wananchi wetu bila infrastructure.
Other than even Kenya Airports Authority improving on the airport facilities, infrastructure, we are also arriving faster than before.
Nataka kushukuru Rais Uhuru Kenyatta kwa kutuletea mradi nzuri kama hii hapa Isiolo, mradi wa Isiolo International Airport. Tumepata hapa employment.